everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. We're going to be taking a look at this up and coming blue moon in the sign of Capricorn. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, click the bell button below and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys give me a thumbs up and consider sharing my work with other people who want to know what is going on in the cosmos. I'm going to get right down to it, guys. In my opinion, this is probably one of the more critical full moons in all of 2024. I'm going to try not to go too much into the themes of the full moon in Capricorn, primarily because I don't want to sound repetitive. This is the second full moon that we are actually seeing this year. If you guys think back to June 21st, 2024, just a few short weeks ago, we had a full moon in Capricorn, and that was at 1 degree of Capricorn. So this is a blue moon. It is a rare event, and there are so many complex and very critical aspects to this particular full moon. I'm going to break it down for you guys and tell you what I think is going to happen and how to best work with this energy. And if you stay tuned, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs, and we'll talk a little bit about what is wrapping up and completing in the Capricorn area of your chart. If you guys want more context, go back in my videos, check out that video on the full moon in Capricorn. We talk about how that full moon at 1 degree was both the beginning and the end, but this critical 29 degree full moon in Capricorn is some major completion. Pluto is not messing around, guys. You're going to see so many darn Pluto aspects, not just with this full moon, but over the next few months into the end of 2024. And I want to talk a lot about that today. The 29 degrees, what we're still working on with Pluto, some of the themes revolving around the Sabian symbols, just to give you a little bit more context as to how this full moon is different than the one we had last month. All right, so let's get right into it. We are taking a look at the full moon that's going to be happening on July 21st, 2024. Obviously, I know we have people in all different time zones, so adjust your time depending on where you are. I'm here in the United States. So if you guys are also in this part of the world, you're going to be experiencing a very early full moon in Capricorn. Likely you're going to be feeling the buildup, actually the 20th going into the 21st. So you might start seeing some of the events relating to this full moon hitting a little bit early. So we have it coming in on the Pacific coast on Pacific time at 3:17 a.m. Central time is going to be 5:17 a.m. and Eastern time is going to be 6:17 a.m. For those of you guys in other parts of the world, I know it's going to be happening either much earlier or much later, depending on where you are. Now, this is a blue moon, all right? So this is something that's a rare occurrence. We're going to talk a little bit about the themes of that, but just know that that in itself means that we are basically seeing a theme where the universe is doubling down and it's saying, guess what? In this area of your life, we need to do a little bit more work. Now, we know a full moon is about completions, conclusions. This is also where emotions are running high, and there is some major kind of pivotal turning point. So this is also going to be an added theme when we kind of take into consideration, all right, full moon, kind of a double dose of completions, and then we add that 29 degrees, that karmic energetic degree, and we have got ourselves quite a unique combination for this lunation. Now, a blue moon is what I would consider almost like a cosmic encore. It's a second chance to bask in the lunar glow and kind of really think about the mysteries of the universe and also what we may have missed in the Capricorn area of our chart. So if you haven't done this already, pull out your chart. We'll take a look. We'll see where Capricorn is. Just know that this is a rare occurrence. It's roughly only every 2.7 to 3 years that we actually see a blue moon. So it doesn't happen every year. And I feel like this is a reminder from the universe that we need to kind of be on our toes. We may feel like there is going to be curveballs that are being thrown, and at the very least, it's going to keep things interesting. Now, astrologically, this is also a time of like heightened energy and potential. That's really what a full moon is about. And so it will amplify, because that's what a full moon does, the characteristics of Capricorn, because the moon will be in Capricorn, the sun will be in Cancer. So the themes of these particular signs are definitely going to be more prominent. Obviously, we know Cancer is ruled by the moon. So as we see the sun in the last degree of Cancer, the moon being in that critical degree is kind of feeding off of that. And we can definitely feel like there is increased intensity revolving around our emotions, our relationships, our personal growth, our career responsibilities. The list goes on and on. Now, I would also see, I feel like a full moon is a time of, completion and manifestation, but a blue moon, I really feel like is going to be an even bigger opportunity for manifesting. Although I will say that some of what happens or what materializes is something that's already kind of been coming for some time. We'll talk about the kind of karmic side of 29 degrees in Capricorn. So is it something where, you want to be manifesting something big? Sure, you can do that. Know that the themes of this particular full moon are a little different, a little bit more intense. We have a conjunction to Pluto, so there is this theme of breakthroughs, breakdowns. There can also be themes of purging and purifying and kind of healing and releasing. So this is the kind of stuff that you want to be working with during this particular full moon. But basically, this is a full moon that I think is really encouraging us to release what no longer serves us, and also really kind of reflect on what needs to change before we set intentions on this next new moon, which we will be having obviously in Leo in a couple weeks, and setting new intentions for the future. So really this is about what do we need to break through before we get to that point. Now, you guys have heard me reference this Sabian symbol a number of times. At this point, I don't even really need to read my Sabian symbol book. But I do want to talk to you guys about this because I feel like this is one of those situations where the Sabian symbols is likely to manifest in a very real way. As an astrologer, it's my job to look at repetitions and patterns to see how certain planets behave in certain degrees and really kind of note the themes of what's happening. So what's beautiful about this 29 degrees of Capricorn is really over the last 4 years, we have seen some planets that has been at this critical degree. So we can kind of think back and we can look at what's been happening, since 2020, as we saw planets dancing with this 29 degrees of Capricorn. Capricorn is the 10th sign of the zodiac, right? It represents hard work, determination, scaling your way all the way to the top and being able to find your place in society. So it knows that it's got to break its back. It's going to take time and a lot of hard work to be able to kind of get to that point where it can get the recognition that it deserves. There's a reason why Capricorn takes longer for things to evolve. And I think in recent years, just kind of reflecting on having had Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, just really feeling like we're kind of going through the mud in some stuff until we finally kind of complete something. So there can be this feeling with this 29 degrees that there is this like final push. Okay, so we're going to have this during the full moon, but we're still going to see this a little bit also because of Pluto. So I want to talk about the 29 degrees. Some astrologers refer to this as the anaretic degree. And this is like the universe's way of basically saying like, hey, pay attention, big things are happening here. Or there is something that you thought was dead and buried and it needs to be dealt with, especially Pluto being at this degree. I always laugh when I see Pluto at this degree because it reminds me of like those zombie movies. You watch like a zombie movie where, you think that the zombies are dead and buried and you're safe. And then all of a sudden, like something kind of pops up and it's like in your face and it's terrifying, right? That's very much Pluto at 29 degrees. It reminds me of Practical Magic, that scene from Practical Magic where the two sisters, they bring the boyfriend back who is like this really terrible, abusive, kind of alcoholic guy, very, very Pluto archetype. The sister ends up poisoning him. I'm sure most of my audience has seen this movie, but the sister ends up poisoning him and he's dead. And so they have to kind of open up their book of spells. They have to kind of bring him back to life and they're looking at each other like, are we sure we want to do this? Before we actually, we bring him back. And when he comes back, he's like in this demonic state and his eyes are rolling back in his head and he's just like this like being that you can't control. All right, probably too much details, but this is Pluto at 29 degrees, okay? So Pluto will be retrograding back to this degree. That's why I'm referencing this so much. The moon is simply highlighting this emotionally and the emotional impact, the emotional reflection that we have to this 29 degrees. Anyway, so wherever Capricorn is in your chart, a full moon being there last month. We've got a second full blue moon that's taking place in July. We're going to have Pluto retrograde back to this degree, which we will be seeing in the fall. And then the Mars retrograde, which is actually going to start in Leo at the end of this year, will feature several oppositions between Mars in Cancer and a 29 degree Pluto in Capricorn. So guys, get familiar with Capricorn in your chart. This is an area where I really feel like a lot of people are going to go, I thought this was over with. I thought we were done with this. I thought this was buried. I thought we had moved past this. Or, you know, I stopped giving power to this. Why is it coming back and creating some power struggles? The micro and the macro are one and the same. That's what I love about astrology, is that we can see the events that's going on out in the world, and I will see some of these similar themes kind of be mirrored in the lives of my clients and also myself. So as I personally reflect over the last 4 years, I think a lot about like Saturn and Pluto being at these degrees, and themes revolving around top-down structures, government leaders, big business, everything revolving around control, regulation, limits. Saturn obviously rules Capricorn, so it really kind of runs a tight ship in these degrees. But Pluto having been there, and Jupiter also having been there as well, we have seen since 2020, I think, a fuller picture of really what Pluto has been kind of cooking up over the last however many years since 2008. Where there has clearly been some manipulation, and there's been some really big abuses of power when it comes to government and leadership, just generally overall. And this merger maybe, and the corruption that we've seen between big business and, you know, big tech, maybe media, leadership, you know, political stuff. So now this is all basically fireworks. When this full moon hits, we're going to have major fireworks. So like I said, micro, macro, we might be seeing this out in the world, but in your life, you might be like, here's this thing that I thought I dealt with, and like now it's like kind of knocking on my front door, and I'm afraid to kind of, you know, handle it and kind of face it. So when we think about the Sabian symbols obviously are a book that was developed by a clairvoyant, Elsie Wheeler. And she had this exercise where she sat down and she basically gave her interpretation clairvoyantly of each and every one of the various degrees of the 360 degrees of the zodiac. So she basically channeled the energies of that degree. So you guys will see me reference these a lot on my channel. And this one is one that I've referenced a lot because we've been seeing a lot of kind of aspects to this particular degree in recent years. So we round up to 30 degrees, and obviously it's Capricorn, so you know it's going to be serious. It's going to be themes of responsibility and also ambition. But the 30 degrees of Capricorn is the last degree of Capricorn before we move to what will be 0 degrees of Aquarius, because all the signs have 0 to 29 degrees. So when I'm reading for 30, I'm really kind of reading the final degree of Capricorn. Anyway. So this Sabian symbol, 30 degrees of Capricorn, is a secret meeting of men responsible for executive decisions and world affairs. So this symbol suggests gathering of influential individuals who make important decisions that will majorly affect the world. This symbol highlights the responsibility and the power of these individuals, and you know, what decisions they're making behind the scenes. I think in the context of this full blue moon in Capricorn with this 29 degrees, the symbol indicates that likely there are going to be significant events that are taking place revolving around this particular full moon, and a decision that will have far-reaching consequences will be made. This will be a meeting of world leaders. Maybe it's a major policy announcement. It could be a critical decision that will shape the future. Obviously, the moon is reflective of the sun, and the sun represents leaders of nations, and the conjunction to Pluto represents some kind of like major like crisis that's going to be brewing. So when I think about the potential scenarios that could manifest from this particular Sabian symbol, I think of like a scenario where, you know, leaders of the world's most powerful nations gather to discuss and make decisions about global issues, right? And these global issues could be climate change, economic policies, international conflicts, things like that. I believe that the decisions that are potentially made during this time will be behind the scenes in secret meetings. And I say that because that's what 29 degrees is about, but also 29 correlates with leadership. It's a degree that's associated with Leo. There's a conjunction to Pluto, so this could also represent where the public is reacting very intensely or very critically to some of the events that are going on in the world and some of the things that are potentially being exposed, right? Because the sun is highlighting the moon, so it can actually be exposing crime, corruption, abuses of power, things of that nature. I think that it's very likely that the decisions that are made, will very much shape the future of, maybe industries, companies, various economies. This is a pretty significant full moon because I feel like it's really suggesting that there's going to be an event that's going to lead to, like leaders having to come together and making a decision that will have long-lasting effects, right? And it's a reminder of the power and responsibility that comes with making executive decisions around the world. Don't believe me? Well, when I look back at the time where we had planets that were at these degrees, and it kind of ranges from 2020 to 2023, there was a number of times that we had planets that were outer planets in these critical degrees. In March, July, and December of 2020, Saturn was at 29 degrees of Capricorn. If you guys remember, that was the year that Saturn was going in and out of Aquarius, and every single time Saturn would hit 29 degrees, we would have another lockdown, or lockdown would be continued because of COVID. And then we saw Saturn in Aquarius, which was like, it was becoming normal to socially distance and isolate. Saturn in Aquarius is an air sign, so it was limiting us to being able to gather in groups. And then obviously everybody was on the internet, they were online, they were on Zoom, they were on FaceTime, very Saturn in Aquarius, where we were upgrading how we were actually kind of connecting in a very kind of futuristic way, right? Aquarius is the internet. So we saw Saturn do that. In May and December of 2020, we saw Jupiter that was in the 29 degrees of Capricorn. And so Jupiter deals with foreign travel. It also deals with laws. It deals with legislation. It deals with also growth. And so, we could have seen with Saturn being in its, with Jupiter being in the opposite sign of its exaltation, that there was challenges revolving around travel. We saw travel industries get crushed. We saw major issues with airlines. We saw, I believe it was bailouts or bail-ins for some of the airlines from the government. And also we saw new laws revolving around where we could travel, how we could travel, how, you needed to carry yourself, what you needed to wear on your body, how you needed to show identification to be able to travel, right? There was lots of red tape. And then more recently, in February, June, and December of 2023, we have had Pluto at this degree. And I have seen this more as major changes in leadership. Obviously, we've seen that across the board over this last year. We have also seen, I think, people growing increasingly more so angry and impatient and unhappy. And we have seen sparks of groups of people who have been pushing for major innovations and change when it comes to leadership. And we have seen some major rebellion, I think I would say, in some of the political parties, and definitely a lot of exposure of corruption of leadership. So, Pluto will be retrograding back. And that's something else that I was thinking about in the back of my mind when I was looking at this particular full moon. So just a little bit more on that, we will see Pluto return to 29 degrees of Capricorn. You're actually going to see this in the fall. So from September 2nd through November 19th, 2024, we will see a very brief period of time where Pluto will have retrograded back into Capricorn. It will sit at 29 degrees of Capricorn for 79 days. So 79 days of that critical degree, and then we will see Pluto return back in November to Aquarius, where it will be for the better part of almost the next 20 years or so. When I put this all together, I see this particular blue moon, this full moon in Capricorn, as bringing everybody's awareness to this thing that we need to complete. And it can feel critical, it can feel like a crisis, it can bring out a huge range of emotions. And likely it's going to be exposing, I think, some major crimes and corruption and misconduct on the world stage. Especially the last decan of Capricorn, there's definitely going to be this theme of, how it's impacting the masses, right? And every time we've seen planets here, there's definitely impacts of that. A full moon can also talk about some kind of culmination of some of the past decisions that were made. The decisions that we've made since 2020 about what's been going on with the economy and what's been going on with government and policies and leadership. So now it's almost like all the chickens are kind of coming home to roost, and we're going to start to see the real true global effects and also the decay and the breakdown that is happening as a result of lack of leadership. And I say that because, well, Saturn is the ruler of this full moon, and unlike the last full moon that we had, now Saturn is retrograde in the sign of Pisces. Anyway, I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it's just the synchronicities of all of the various aspects of this moon is just out of this world. So I want you guys to think back to the last full moon that we had last month. And, likely this was a moon that showed you how far you've come, what you have been able to complete. But you also probably, in true Capricorn nature, were able to see where there was still some room for improvement. So I want you to reflect on what's happened last month. The themes of a full moon in Capricorn obviously revolve around things like ambition, responsibility, and achievement. But I think that this can also be bringing our focus to our career, our public life. There can be an emphasis on setting goals and working towards them in a structured, disciplined manner. The energy of Capricorn encourages us to consider our sense of duty and responsibility, both in our personal lives and in our professional endeavors. So in a more personal way, we're going to see themes revolving around ambition and career. So there may be even more of a critical feeling when it comes to our career goals, our professional achievements, and our long-term ambitions. So, this, I would say, with the last moon was a time to reflect on that and go, what changes do I need to make? With this full moon, it's like, okay, now I'm kind of getting served up, whatever I'm kind of owed as a result of past behavior or, what I have kind of applied myself to in the past. Now it's all coming full circle. Responsibility and discipline feels more critical for me with this particular full moon, especially with Saturn retrograde, because there can be this feeling of, well, now things are really reaching that critical point, and Saturn retrograde is like, well, where is my support coming from, or where is my security, or who has my back? So there's definitely an emphasis on taking responsibility, being disciplined and kind of staying the course and like being committed to seeing something all the way through. There will be this feeling of needing more structure and stability. I think with 29 degrees and Saturn retrograde, there is this feeling of being like, when critical things happen and you need support or you need direction or you need leadership, it may feel like it's harder to find. So there is going to be themes of really also acknowledging and looking at, like, where did I think I had stability, and maybe I'm now seeing that through this critical situation, something is not as solid as I thought it was. It could be a financial situation, it could be a relationship, it could be a job. It really depends, but I do feel like the positive in this is that whatever comes up, it's meant to kind of show you like, okay, this needs to be worked on. And throughout the next several months, really between now and I would say November, as Pluto is getting ready to retrograde back, we do that work, right? If anything, we're going to see emotional resilience. I think that's a given with the full moon in Capricorn, but with this at 29 degrees and Pluto really close by, if you're somebody who's born with Pluto on your moon, or you've gone through Pluto making a hard aspect or a conjunction to your moon, that transit likely materialized as overcoming something that you may have felt like you didn't think you were going to make, out the other side, right? And so I've seen people who have Moon Pluto conjunctions natally where they have like a story of like where they overcame some life-threatening disease, or, their mother was diagnosed with something and then ended up being a survivor or a fighter, or they were able to make it through some really difficult periods in their life revolving around relationships with their roots, their home, and their family, but they overcame. So I see this as like a story of like redemption and, this connection to the archetype of the phoenix through Pluto. of like death and rebirth, and like the cycles of purging and purifying and then kind of coming back into something new. So through that, we learn emotional resilience for sure. But also the true nature of authority and leadership, and what it means to be powerful, what it means to be strong, what it means to be able to lead other people. You know, do you do that through a strong emotional nature? Do you do that through being able to kind of read the room or read others? Do you rely on your intuition, or are you ruthless? And is it something that is about being cold-hearted and manipulative and, doing whatever it takes, as long as the end justifies the means? I think there's going to be a lot of that kind of coming up out in the world that we have to kind of reflect on. And we have to ask ourselves, like, is some of the ways that we are navigating things humane? And is there some stuff that's coming up that's really kind of showing us collectively, like, where we've become emotionally hardened or desensitized, or kind of conditioned to just think that it's normal to see themes of Pluto: death, war, starvation, illness, brutality, violence. And some of the effects of this full moon can be very shocking, because we can definitely see some of that out in the world for sure. And it can be something that is either going to wake people up and shock people and make people realize that there are some pretty heinous crimes that are being, committed by people in power, or people are going to continue kind of sleepwalking with the sextiles to Neptune. It depends. Watch for themes in the collective revolving around economic stability. I do see this as possibly a turning point where there is some kind of crisis that could be impacting the economy. I do feel like there can be a crisis revolving around community and social order. Because, traditionally when we see anything in Aquarius, it's about, what's going on with the collective and how we're working together for the greater good. But as the moon is approaching the conjunction to Pluto at its kind of climax point, it basically suggests that there's going to be some events that are taking place that can cause some disruption, and it can cause people to feel, extremely rebellious or extremely angry or reactionary as a result of kind of what's going on with leadership out in the world. There will be much more of an emphasis on, what's going on with global responsibility and, kind of asking ourselves who's in charge. Like I said, during this particular full moon, now Saturn is retrograde. So the ruler of both Pluto as well as the moon is in Pisces, mutable water sign, traditionally ruled by Jupiter. And it's retrograde, which means it's kind of like nowhere to be found. When there's stuff that's going down in the world, we've got leaders that are hiding, right? And so it's kind of interesting. I mean, right around the time Saturn was going retrograde was when it was making headlines that, the United States President Biden was going off to Camp David for 10 days to prepare for his debates. Very Saturn retrograde in Pisces, being away, needing to work on something, needing to rehearse something. And then the reveal around the retrograde is that, kind of seeing the state of the candidates and how they were performing. Anyway, so this full moon with Saturn retrograde kind of makes me look at things and go, okay, there's likely going to be some kind of critical events that are taking place in the world that people are responding to in a very emotional manner, and people are going to look around and go like, okay, well, where is our leaders? What are they doing? And this is definitely, I think, an emperor has no clothes moment. With Saturn being retrograde, it is at 19 degrees, so it does talk about like the partnerships and the support factor of leaders, and where there can be lack of support, and that can be support of the media, because Jupiter is the dispositor of Saturn. So you could be hearing that certain media outlets are not necessarily supporting certain candidates, or they're not necessarily speaking positively for new prime ministers and like other things. I know recently we have had elections that have been taking place in France as well as the UK. I think it's fair to say, I don't live there, but I think it's fair to say, having seen some of the voting maps and stuff, and how it's kind of worked out for the different parts of the countries, and ultimately how they got the results that they got, the feedback is absolutely astounding to kind of see so many people speak out and be so vocal about the fact that they are apparently disapproving of the PMs that they're kind of bringing in. And it got me kind of thinking about, like, how is this happening? Like, how is this taking place in the world? And I was looking at Saturn and I was like, of course, you know, Saturn is retrograde and, you know, it's at a 19, which means that, you know, clearly there is some kind of behind the scenes, right? Saturn retrograde, support from other partnerships, and Pisces is global. So we can be seeing like this global shift that's kind of happening where it's going to be less and less and less about having leaders that are super primarily focused on maintaining their national values. And there is some support coming from some kind of like larger kind of group or organization. I've said for a long time, and I don't coin this by any means, but Saturn in Pisces is definitely like very shadow government because Capricorn is about government and Pisces represents what is hidden and what we don't see. We have not just seen this limited to what's been going on with government. We've seen this recently. I forget his name, but there is some, I want to say a priest or cardinal or somebody who has been like excommunicated now from the Catholic Church. And he's been excommunicated and he's made some statements on the internet in recent weeks and has come out and essentially said in so many words that there is some kind of collaboration that's going on between the Catholic Church specifically and the Pope, and with some shadow organization that's got some kind of global ties with like global politics. And so, you know, some people say, well, it's, you know, it's the shadow government. Some people say it's the Illuminati. Some people are like, oh, it's the Weffers. You know, the truth is we don't know who it is. But it's interesting to see that also come through Pisces, and that now we're hearing excommunicated, right? Retrograde Saturn in Pisces, priests, which represents organized religion, that are speaking out against, you know, their relationships that they have, claiming that there are some shadow things going on behind the scenes that they don't believe in. So whether that's true or false, I just found that really fascinating. Especially we're seeing this full moon that is conjunct Pluto, so it can represent this consciousness, this awareness that's happening where we're kind of reaching a critical turning point when it comes to leadership, and the sextile to Neptune, that can be the things that we're not seeing, or the illusions that's out there, what's being portrayed, what's being projected, what we're watching on TV, what we're hearing. It can also very much be about manipulation and media. It can be about propaganda. It can be about kind of dissolving reality, right? Especially Saturn being in this sign. And so now there is this breakdown because we have Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto all retrograde in these signs. That's like, now we're starting to actually kind of see things fracture and fall apart when it comes to leadership, right? Anyway, so, you know, Saturn retrograde, I think, is a time for deep introspection and self-reflection, particularly in the areas of our lives where we've been avoiding wanting to face reality or dealing with difficult emotions. So a retrograde in this sign is a period to take a step back and reevaluate our dreams, our goals, and the steps we're taking to achieve them. I think that during this retrograde, we're encouraged to examine our boundaries and our discipline, especially in the realm of our emotions and spirituality. And we may feel like we need to confront our fears and insecurities and learn how to set healthy boundaries in our relationships and in our daily lives. Now, Saturn is the planet of karma. We do have Saturn retrograde, so we're seeing the karma kind of get doled out. And when I say karma, it's neither good nor bad, it's neutral. It's just now we're facing the repercussions of our past actions and our past doings. Whether it's been since Saturn's been in Pisces, you know, since last year, or if it's, you know, since where we were, you know, dealing with Saturn in Pisces 30 years ago, or past lives even, now we are starting to see the results of what we have done. So with this particular full moon ruled by Saturn, which is retrograde, I really feel like this is a full moon that's saying, like, we need to face our karmic patterns and lessons, and we need to work on healing any generational past life drama or trauma that might be holding us back. And it might feel like it's time for us to get rid of or let go of old beliefs and ways of thinking that no longer serve us, and also embracing a new, more authentic way of being. But it's almost like this is a full moon that's like TNT, right? We're just packing the TNT and we're pulling the line and we're getting ready to kind of blow up the tower. So a full moon here can feel like that tower moment, but what people don't realize is that in order to get to the other side, we actually have to, we have to go through like the clearing of the rubble. So whatever is going to happen during this full moon needs to happen so we can actually get to the core of the problem and we can start kind of, working on a solution. So much of this is also about, calling in alignment when it comes to our dreams and making sure that our dreams are in alignment with reality. Saturn in Pisces is about making our dreams a reality, but it can also mean that there is the illusion of support, or there is the illusion of, leadership or security, stability. And so I think we're going to see when shift hits the fan with Moon Pluto, what leadership or what stability or security is really made of. And to that, you need to actually look at Pisces in your chart. So the action is probably going to be in the Capricorn area of your chart, but it's going to be getting its results from Pisces. And so if you're not doing your Saturn due diligence in Pisces, then you're going to see fireworks basically in the Capricorn area of your chart. I think ultimately it's about really taking the steps that we need to manifest our deepest desires, facing our fears and challenges with courage and determination, and knowing that the lessons that we learn during this full moon period will ultimately lead to greater wisdom, growth, and fulfillment. Now, I want to talk about the aspects of this full moon because it is different than the last full moon that we had. Obviously, one of the most, I think, critical aspects is definitely the conjunction to Pluto, because that is kind of like the tightest aspect that we see. There's a few, but that's one of the tighter ones that we see. And Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius. So like I said, Pluto is going to be coming back. We're going to see that in September through November, back into the sign of Capricorn. But Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is about taking a step back and really reevaluating, something in society, something relating to our collective consciousness. And with Pluto, there's always this element of transformation and rebirth. So in the retrograde, see it as like a cosmic reset button for our social structures and the way that we interact with each other. With this comes intensity, purging, purification, right? These are all the themes of, Pluto conjunct the full moon. But like I said, like the phoenix, something is ending only to be reborn. Now, then we've got Saturn retrograde. So we talked a little bit about how that's reviewing some of our boundaries, reviewing what is real and what's not real, also kind of doling out the karma. But Saturn is like the cosmic drill sergeant. And I think this is about really making sure that we've learned our lessons. And so if you keep feeling like you're getting the same lesson over and over and over, this can be Saturn's way of trying to get your attention. Make sure you're taking time to reflect and take responsibility for your actions and for setting boundaries. Likely, because Saturn has this connection to karma, and so does 29 degrees, this full moon may really be dishing it out like big time. Bigger plans are at play here, and it may feel like things are breaking down, but in reality, it's about breaking through. Any false illusions, assumption of leaderships, jobs that aren't fulfilling, structures in our lives that may not be solid or reliable, or what's not right for us in the long term. Now, when we look at some of the other aspects and what's going to be playing out here, we see that the moon, Neptune, as well as the sun are all at 29 degrees. Okay, so that's something that kind of caught my eye. Obviously, the moon sextiles Neptune, the moon opposes the sun. We also see an out of sign trine that's taking place to Mars. So we'll kind of break that down piece by piece. But the home is Cancer. Okay, so the sun represents men, fathers, leadership, homeland, anything revolving around shining a light on our emotions and what's going on at home. And then the opposition to the moon is about the public response to some of the conditions, and 29 degrees feels critical. We've got the moon at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And by the way, the moon is in its opposite sign of its domicile. So it's moving through a Saturn-based sign. So it's having to do a lot of emotional labor, basically. So it's not as comfortable being in this sign. But this is about emotions and responsibility. Remember that the moon is reflecting off of the sun, so responsibility to home, to family, to homeland, to leadership. to goals in regards to home and security. And then we've also got Saturn reflecting the moon, which is retrograde. So it's saying like, we're really reflecting and asking ourselves like, man, you know, are our plates too full? Are we being pulled in two different directions? You know, I've always seen this critical axis with Cancer and Capricorn here as being like, you know, we're stressed to the max, working or feeling like we're always taking something on or more responsibility to be able to kind of better maintain or feel like we can obtain some kind of home life or security. This could be a big full moon for the housing market. We could see some really big things going on with like real estate transactions or potentially some swings that are taking place in regards to the housing market. And that could also reach some critical numbers as well. And then we've got the Neptune at 29 degrees, and it's retrograde at that degree. And it will, you know, pretty much drop back down to, I think, about 28 degrees and come back. But that's also in the final moments, right? 29 degrees represents the final moments. Where the sun and the moon are very quick, we're not actually going to see Neptune's ingress into Aries until next year. And even then it'll kind of go back and forth until 2026. But Neptune wants to dissolve or release things, right? So that's happening in Pisces. So this is about dissolving or releasing, you know, issues pertaining to immigration, pertaining to you know, emotional limits or emotional bounds, things revolving around oceans, things relying or connected to water. I think about hospitals, rehab centers, prisons. So likely, you know, the moon is kind of reflecting some of these particular topics, some kind of critical situation with some of these topics. And the moon Pluto can be crime and corruption relating to hospitals coming full circle, which I think we're going to hear more about actually in September when we have an eclipse between Saturn and Neptune, but that's down the road. Crime and corruption connected to, you know, issues pertaining to the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry. That's very Neptune and Pisces. You know, secrets and things emerging about collusion and collaboration or involvement or kind of overseeing things pertaining to prisons, camps. These are going to be things you guys are going to hear a lot more about because you've got Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and it'll become more visible, and you guys will hear more about this as we get closer to 2025. We've got moon that is in a number of aspects at the time of the full moon. So as if the conjunction of Pluto wasn't enough for you, the moon's making a ton of aspects. So it has got a trine to Uranus in Capricorn, in Taurus. So we've got an earth trine here by about a couple degrees. And I actually like this because I feel like, you know, where you have conjunctions and squares and things can feel intense, the trines and the sextiles are the release point. So that's what you want to kind of lean into to help you kind of navigate what's happening with this particular moon. So moon trine Uranus is emotional shifts and sudden insights. Uranus in Taurus is about fluctuations and changes with money, food, resources, the earth, you know, your goals, things pertaining to your values, the banking system. So likely there could be some critical things going on where it is involving whether or not, you know, governments are going to be stepping in and providing support for the banking systems or how they're responding to fluctuations that's actually going on with the economy. It does mean that you have the ability to kind of pivot in the midst of what can feel like a really intense time. And this is about being able to kind of make changes when it comes to your resources and your physical goods. Then we have the moon in a sextile to Neptune. So both are at 29 degrees. This is also probably the second most almost exact aspect in this particular full moon. On one hand, you know, I mean, this is about tapping into your intuition, uncovering secret or hidden things. This is about dreams. This is also about where you're really applying hard work and dedication emotionally to something and how, you know, it makes it possible for you to be able to better align with your vision and your goals and what you're manifesting. It can make us feel more inspired, more creative, more romantic. It can also really help us when it comes to just kind of tapping into our higher self and feeling like, yes, what I am feeling is exactly what I'm seeing. Like, you know, I feel solid when it comes to making this gut decision. So important when we talk about that because the gut, you know, intuition, that's very moon kind of Cancer as well as Pisces. I think some of the more challenging aspects is going to be the fact that the moon will conjunct Pluto. So it can feel like this hot ass emotional meltdown. We can see the ugly crying. We can feel like something's at a critical turning point that we're now aware of, and we're going to spend the next couple of months working through. But the moon is also starting to come out of a square with Chiron in Aries. So it's about 6 degrees away. And I feel like for me, Capricorn is like carrying the team, right? It is, taking care of other people. It's, helping your kids, taking care of your parents, getting your work done, showing up, for your bosses, like being reliable and being responsible. So the square that we see to Chiron is basically highlighting during this full moon that, where there is this critical situation going on at work or in regards to our career or our public persona, that showing up and carrying the responsibility alone, how lack of leadership is actually impacting us on an individual level. We've all worked jobs where we have like a boss that has no idea what they're doing. And it's very obvious how that has a ripple effect kind of down the food chain at work, and how all of the employees are, doing their job, or, when it comes to their productivity or their sales or whatever. Without a solid leader, it's really difficult to kind of get the whole team in alignment and have everything work like a well-oiled machine. So when we see this breakdown, because that's what Pluto is about, of leadership or people at the top, we start to see how mismanagement or cruelty or abuse of power or manipulation is actually hurting the little people. It's not helping individuals. Now, Chiron is about healing wounds, and Chiron in Aries can be, individual wounds, personal wounds, actual injuries that people have sustained as a result of lack of insight and intelligence from government officials making decisions about bodies, is very Chiron in Aries. I think about how this is going to be some of the decisions that are being made and how it's impacting younger people, because Aries can be younger people, how it's impacting the military with these never-ending wars. That's one way that I kind of see that. So, individuals are going to feel harmed or hurt in some way as a result of the lack of leadership. And, the lower octave energy of Aries can be getting angry, reactionary, feeling like you kind of just want to get upset and punch a wall or burn things down, right? So that can come up. We can see lots of emotions revolving around that needs an outlet. Now, the positive is that, like I said, you can have the, oh my God, crisis moment with the moon Pluto. You can be open and be willing to consider the impossible, or be willing to give people the benefit of the doubt, or be overly compassionate or understanding with the sextile to Neptune. Or another outlet is going to be the moon coming into a trine with Mars. Now, it's an out of sign trine, but if you see, this is almost 0 degrees of Aquarius, and Mars is now going to be in Gemini during this full moon, and the moon will trine Mars. What I think about the moon trine Mars essentially is emotional motivation. This is about movement, communication, words and action, getting out, doing something, talking about something, organizing something within your local community, writing about it, talking about it, sharing, doing an email blast, writing a book, going and reading something, learning something, feeling motivated to take action. In my opinion, the only real way to navigate this particular full moon is to lean into the trines between Mars, as well as what will eventually be on the 22nd, the trines to Jupiter, once the moon has ingressed into Aquarius. When we see air trines happening between Pluto and Mars, this is about power in numbers. Remember, Mars is the ruler of the North Node. So if we see some harmonious aspects, even in what can look like a very difficult full moon to Mars, I'm like, okay, let's make lemonade. Let's start building our lemonade stand. Let's get it ready. And the moon is about our emotional body, but it can also be saying where we need to really kind of push through some kind of crisis, and we actually need to get into action. And Mars in Gemini is about getting on your feet. It's about speaking out. It's about saying something. It's about learning. It's also very much about debates, and it's about, I think, using intelligence and communication as like your best weapon, right? So that's exciting, because this can be very motivational. It can be like, okay, so there's a crisis. What are we going to do about it? not focusing on what went wrong or not complaining about what has been or reminiscing or rehashing the past. It's like, no, we need to deal with this issue head on. What are we going to do about it right now? And what's positive is that you will see the moon, you know, the throughout the day start coming into a trine, not just with Mars, but also with Jupiter. And so these are air signs. It's about communication. It's being like, okay, we're going to, you know, call a friend. We're going to put a group together. We're going to, you know, find a solution. We're going to learn how to kind of fix the problem. So it very much is going to be about interaction and communication with other people to be able to overcome some of the challenges from this full moon. Now you will see the sun in Cancer sextiles Mars in Gemini, right? So if the moon trines it, the sun is sextiling it. Now, once again, it's an out of sign sextile, so it looks a little funky. But the sun is about, you know, basically our goals. This is about where we're shining a light on something. This is about really focusing on, I think, you know, kind of getting some kind of spotlight on something so that way, you know, we are able to kind of make something happen. So Mars is kind of the motivator, and it's kind of shining a light with the sun, and it's basically saying, okay, once again, communication, sharing, talking about things, and the change that we then see within the homeland or within our home or our families, our emotions. So it's kind of pushing some of the same themes. We will see Mars in a trine to Pluto, and that's actually kind of building all day. Really strong aspect. Once again, Mars rules the North Node. So Mars trine Pluto for me is like great power in numbers. Granted, it's 0 degrees. So we have all these 29s, which is like, hi, these are critical points. This needs to end. And then we have this 0 degree, this like baby degree, which is saying we need to learn how to communicate, think on our feet, pivot, have options, you know, be willing to kind of speak up. And this is about strength in numbers. This is about where one voice sparks like a revolution, where one person says something or writes something or shares something or puts something together. One individual that can wake up and kind of like rouse the masses in a way. We'll see that Venus in Leo is going to make a sextile to Jupiter, which is a very fortuitous aspect because Jupiter obviously is about growth and resources and knowledge and abundance. In this case, in Gemini, of communication, words, the mind, learning, short distance travel, and the sextile to Venus is about bringing in harmony, bringing in resources, you know, bringing in this excitable, creative, playful, inspiring energy. So we have some very beautiful aspects between not only Mars and Venus, but also Mars and Pluto. So actually Mars, the North Node, is very, I think, well aspected here. You know, Mars and Pluto are very similar. They can almost like be brothers, you know, and I think that both of them kind of want the same thing. Sometimes it's about war, breakdown, destruction, conflict, you know, power. And I think that they're kind of in alignment with this being like, yeah, it's time to completely kind of clear the deck and start over. So they seem to be in alignment with wanting to kind of get back down to basics and start from scratch. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, like, what does this mean for me personally? You know, it's gonna mean something different depending on all of your rising signs. But one thing I would say, just in closing, is the other aspect that I was looking at, and this is interesting because Mercury will make this aspect several times throughout the Mercury retrograde, which is going to start in August. Mercury is the mind. Okay, this is about communication. This is about electronics. This is about cars and contracts and even media. Mercury is in the sign of Leo, which is about, I think, speaking loudly and proudly and bold. Mercury is forming a square to Uranus, which is kind of like mentally stimulating, almost feeling like you stick your finger in a light socket, or maybe you had a little bit too much caffeine. Squares are hard aspects, which feels like it can be, disruptive, or that there is some force that's pressuring you to do something. So if Mercury wants to communicate, travel, or do business, and Uranus says, I want to flip the table over, I don't want to do that, you know, I'm not gonna work with you, we're gonna see some turbulence when it comes to communications and like being able to communicate in a cool, calm, and collected way. And it can bring some mental stress, and it can also bring some disruptions in electricity, travel, business. Specifically, Leo deals with creatives. This is actors, actresses. This is younger people, children, romantic partners. Uranus represents basically in Taurus things connected to disruptions with the earth. It could be, things like earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, but this could also be disruptions revolving around electronics and banking, money, food, and resources. So I put the two together and I go, wow, there's going to be some situation where people are going to be looking to leadership, and whether this is like your boss at work, or if you're looking to, the leader of your country, or if you're looking to the leader of, or an owner of a company for some kind of support or some kind of help, because likely there's going to be some very stressful situations, Mercury square Uranus, revolving around money, food, transaction, and ownership. I have said this in previous videos, and I'm going to continue to keep saying things as long as I see that it's happening. But to me, with Mercury being in shadow, and this is the first square, this is a full moon that you guys want to have cash. You want to have food on hand. You want to be mindful that there can be some internet disruptions. You want to be mindful that there can be some power disruptions, because this is telling me that it's going to be very stressful in communicating and trying to kind of work through wherever the crisis is going to be. We're going to be seeking leadership with Mercury, quincunx, the moon, and Pluto. And we're going to realize, oh, it's on me, right? Leo is the individual, and it's squaring Uranus. So there can be stress over what you have and what you don't have. This could be stock market stuff that goes haywire. This could be issues with, leaving money on exchanges and being able to get money on and off board of situations. So if you're somebody who trades or you deal with the markets, this is the time you want to watch, because there could be some critical stuff going on, and people might be looking to leaders or CEOs or other people who have some kind of say in what's going on with financial governance, to make decisions, because they're going to be like, how do I get my money on or off of something? Or how do I make my withdrawal? Or how do I, have access to this? So it's not a time that you just want to kind of leave things like idle. You want to keep an eye on what's going on with all of that stuff. Pay attention, because that will be an aspect that will happen several times. We will see when Mercury retrogrades in August that there is going to be more kind of returning to what happened with this event and trying to figure out what went down. I said to you guys in a previous video that we were going to see with like the Mercury-Pluto opposition that there was probably going to be some kind of like hack, or that there would be some kind of news dropping about somebody like breaking into something, because Mercury is data. And it ended up being like the Fed got hacked. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but like supposedly some group did that. And then they said that they were like, we want X amount of millions of dollars, otherwise we're going to go public with it. I'm wondering if we're going to see something similar with this full moon, if it's going to be about exposure of information or a data dump, or if it's going to be something revolving around some kind of involvement that we see with like major CEOs or like politicians, and like the impact that they have on markets or financial institutions. So yeah, that's something else that you guys want to watch for. And obviously, last but certainly not the least, Venus is also trining slightly the north node, and it's sextiling the south node. So that's a nice space to have Venus in, because obviously this is about faded, because Venus can be about money and relationships, faded financial situations, and also faded relationship happenings. This can be about being bold, being daring, being creative, and it's also about kind of releasing and letting go of the south node, so that need to feel attached to someone or something. It's also about clearing out old relationships and kind of purging and kind of healing some of that stuff as well. All right, so what does it mean for you personally? All I can tell you guys is buckle up, because this full moon is going to be a wild ride. I don't think I've seen a full moon with such critical aspects in quite some time. It's surprising even for me. So even I'm kind of like, what's going to happen? Just expect a feeling of a sense of urgency. And there's going to be this feeling of, I need to tie up loose ends. I need to finish this project. I need to make a big decision. The universe is giving you a cosmic deadline. And it's about meeting that deadline. So likely after this full moon, you're going to be working with then in preparation for Pluto to retrograde back into Capricorn. And you'll see that September through November, and then you'll kind of wrap up those loose ends. Don't worry, this is not all doom and gloom. This full moon is, I think, actually a time for celebration. It's about recognizing how far you've come, setting your sights on the future. Think of this as like a cosmic graduation. You're kind of getting your grade with this particular full moon, and you're going to kind of see whether or not you're going to graduate based off of the effects of the full moon. I think a lot of you guys are going to get your diploma. You're going to be like, I made it, even though there are some things you need to kind of wrap up. And yeah, get ready for the cosmic fireworks, because this is going to be a full moon for the books. Be prepared, take notes, watch what happens, because I think I said in my last video, this is a full moon that's really about kind of impacting like the big boys, whether this is like, you know, prime ministers or CEOs of companies, or if this is going to be about like presidents or anything like that. This is really impacting the big boys, and this is going to be the ripple effects of some of the decisions that have been made in previous years. Now, I'm trying to be sensitive to the fact that I know this can be a really difficult moon for some people. So something I put together for you guys is just like a list of things that you might want to remind yourself during this full moon. Number one, full moon, especially in an earth sign, ground your energy, work with a grounding mat, go outside, go for a walk, do some gardening, do some cooking, work with your crystals, anything you can do to kind of ground your energy. That's number one, because this can feel very overwhelming. Number two, the ruler is in Pisces, all right? So this is also like go and take a bath, throw some herbs, throw some salt in a bath, you know, do a visualization where you're doing some breath work and you're soaking in a tub, you're purifying, you're cleansing, you pull the drain, everything goes down the drain, and when the tub is empty, you get out, right? Very simple. Visualization will get you a long way here, but a lot of this is about kind of closing up and wrapping up old chapters. Get a sticky note. If one of these resonates with you, you know, put it on a sticky note, put it by your desk at your computer, you know, put it on the inside of your phone cover, put it on your visor, put it somewhere where you're going to see this. But I put together a list of like mantras and things that can be really helpful for working with this particular full moon, because obviously Pluto is kind of very much involved. So the first one for me that came up was, I embrace transformation with grace and power. Number two would be, I'm in control of my destiny and I'm unafraid of change. Number three is, my ambitions are fueled by my emotional strength. Number four is, I release what no longer serves me to make room for growth. Number five is, I trust the process of evolution even when it's uncomfortable. Number six is, my soul's purpose is aligned with my deepest desires. Number seven is, I am the architect of my own success and happiness. Number eight is, I am resilient in the face of change and challenge. Number nine is, I honor my emotions as a source of wisdom and guidance. And number 10 is, I am worthy of achieving my highest potential. So I'll put those in the description below. So if you need something that's like a reminder when this is kind of hitting, when you have your oh shift moment, you can remind yourself of that. I do want to take you guys through the 12 rising signs. I'm going to focus more on, because you guys have seen a full moon happen here already, I'm going to focus more on what needs to be completed in that area of Capricorn before you move to Aquarius, because Pluto's going to go in and out. So clearly we got to wrap something up in Capricorn before you see some bigger changes that's going to be happening in Aquarius. I don't just say that because Pluto is going to be back later this year. If you guys are like me and you look at some of the lunations ahead of time, I have to, because I create astrology calendars. So like come, I don't know, like November of last year, I already saw all the moons and I was like, holy cow. Anyway, the next full moon in Aquarius is like, holy shift. Like the next couple full moons are really crazy, you guys. So we've got this one, a critical one next month, and then we come into eclipse season. Can you guys believe it? So I guess what I'm getting at is we have a lot of work to do. Don't just look at where Capricorn is. Also look at what needs to be completed in Capricorn before we get into Aquarius. I'll show it to you. And we need to look at where Saturn is, because that Saturn retrograde is going to have an impact on what needs to kind of get worked out in your second full moon, in your blue moon. As a reminder, I am a Western astrologer. I practice Western astrology. That is what I do. I am not a Vedic astrologer. I use the tropical system. I'm going to be showing this to you guys from the whole sign technique. So I recommend listening to your whole rising sign Listen to your sun sign and also your moon sign. It's a full moon. Listen to your moon sign as well. That's really going to impact you emotionally, so it's important to listen. But yeah, rising is where, sun is how it impacts your goals and your career. Moon is more about your emotions and your home. You got to listen to all three to get a bigger picture. If you are a Placidus user like me, you want to see where is 29 degrees of Capricorn. So you may have to listen to another sign, but that's what's so cool about this particular, I think this particular full moon is that whether you listen to the Placidus or the whole sign, it's going to be talking about what's getting wrapped up before you move to the next sign. So it will correlate if you listen to whole sign, right? So yeah, look at Pisces. That's where Saturn is or is not doing his work. And look at Pluto, because this is what's about to emerge, and likely something needs to be dealt with in Capricorn prior to moving fully into the change in Aquarius. Okay, I'll show it to you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so let's start with Aries and Aries rising. Okay, guys, so you have a second full moon in Capricorn, right? This is taking place for you, Aries, in your 10th house. This is all about your career, your public life, and your reputation, point blank. So something big is changing in this area of your life. You're doing double time, overtime, work probably literally, or you're feeling that there's more responsibility or there's more of a push when it comes to your reputation out in the world. This almost feels like it needs to be completed now, or your awareness needs to be there now. Because you're getting ready to see, number one, Pluto's going to go back into your 10th house. So it may mean that this is a critical turning point in your career. It may mean that it's a time when you mean it this time, you're going to change jobs, you're going to apply to new jobs, you're going to quit a job, you're ready to move into a higher position. And then two, Saturn is the ruler of this moon, okay? And Saturn is retrograde in the 12th house. So it can mean that there's a lot of pressure at work. You're working really hard behind the scenes. There's something that you're trying to kind of get going. You may feel like, something critical is taking place and that, things are kind of slowing down, that you need more time to reflect, or you need more time to kind of work behind the scenes on some of this stuff. Something to really think about, especially, because obviously Aries and Aries risings, this is a full moon that's happening in a cardinal sign. If you happen to be a late degree Aries sun, moon, or rising, you're going to be kind of the focal point of a square between the moon and the sun, which basically means that you feel like you're between a rock and a hard place when it comes to, making the necessary decisions you need to make when it comes to work, responsibility, your reputation out in the world, and your home and your family or your living situation. All I can tell you is if you're overworking, this will be a time where you're seeing some kind of storyline revolving around work shifting, where maybe you're taking a step back, you're working less, you're working part-time, you're taking care of health, you're focusing more on what's going on with something behind the scenes. Maybe you're going back to school. Maybe there is some shift that's going on with management or leadership in some kind at work, right? Anyway, loving that this trines your Mars transit, by the way. So you're feeling active and daring and very inspired to do what you got to do. And I think Mars going into the 3rd house, it can be saying, well, there's something changing at work, how you're thinking about work and career, also your job, and you may be having to leap into a travel situation, or having to be there for a sibling or for a family member. And so that may be impacting something about your work and your responsibility, because you're like, I got to hit the road. I got to go somewhere. I got to call for my sister or my sibling, something's going on. I got to go. And family may be taking a little bit more precedence. Okay. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you, Aries. Let me know what happens. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You're going to be doing this second full moon, this blue moon in Capricorn in your 9th house in a fellow sister earth sign. So if you're a late degree Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, this will be trining you, which is very helpful, very powerful, very transformative. All right, so for you to have a full moon in the 9th house, this is bringing your attention to obviously higher education, travel, philosophy, publishing, legal matters, anything revolving around your belief system in general. Pretty positive house. I really feel like for you, Taurus, really the storyline is about what is completing, what is changing, what are you wrapping up revolving around 9th house topics. Do you have to travel for work? Are you, finally getting ready to graduate? Are you making a big decision about the future of your career? Are you shifting your philosophy about work? Is there some legal matter, education matter, publishing matter that's kind of coming up revolving around your 9th house? What needs to complete there? You know, the thing is that Pluto right now is just probably just riding you like a bull, and it's in your 10th house, and you're probably going through some pretty big changes when it comes to your career, your reputation, and how people, you know you. Pluto rules your 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So it can be that, you know, you're working with new partners at work, or that there is some major status change. And so, you know, maybe you find yourself separating from a work partnership, or maybe you're changing directions in your personal relationship. So the full moon in the 9th house can manifest as, well, how does that impact the way that I see the future of my career? Or, you know, do I need to talk to an attorney? Whatever. Anyway, you need to shift something in the 9th house. You need to meet with a mentor. You need to shift something about what you believe in. There needs to possibly be some kind of, you know, like I said, travel or education or completion of something before you go further into this dramatic change with your career and your reputation. Now, Saturn is the ruler of this particular full moon. It's retrograde in the 11th house, which means you're reflecting on, what are my goals? How do I want to make money? Who am I networking with? Who are my friends? Who's got my back? So, you know, really, the more that you're focusing on these things, being a part of a collective, collaborating, you know, working with a group, being a good friend, socializing, the easier it's going to be for you to shift something about your belief system, right? And it may mean that working with the right company, the right person, the right kind of team could shift everything in terms of the way that you're actually seeing and like looking at some of the changes that are going on when it comes to your long-term kind of career stuff, right? Something working in your favor, obviously, is at the time of this full moon. You've got Venus in your 4th house trining the North Node. So, you know, it can mean that there is almost like safety and security and solitude at home, you know, with a romantic partner, with a family member, somebody who is kind of helping you when it comes to, you know, working out some of these belief issues. It can also mean that there is something that is really evolving when it comes to your private life, your home, or your family, and that the full moon is really kind of bringing up for you, you know, maybe there needs to be a shift in the way that I look at how much I'm working, or where I'm working, or how much I'm traveling for work. And that somehow kind of goes hand in hand with the storyline, okay? So definitely a time to kind of get ready to wrap some of these things up before you go into a much more permanent kind of major transformation in your public life or your career. Good luck. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You are going to be experiencing this full moon in Capricorn, a second full moon, a blue moon in your 8th house. All right, so for you, my Gemini, this is all about shared resources, transformation, intimacy, death, rebirth, other people's money. It's definitely a interesting place to have 2 full moons, because there's just a lot of feeling vulnerable maybe with this particular full moon. Maybe there's more emphasis in like talking about joint resources or dealing with like debt or paying stuff off. At the time of this moon, obviously, I'm looking at Saturn, because Saturn is the ruler, and Saturn is sitting in your 10th house of career, where it's retrograde, which means it's reviewing what is my status out in the world? What am I doing for work? Do I like what I'm doing? Do I need to change directions? You know, do I have a lot of responsibility? And the impact that that is having on your money, your joint resources, or your security, right? Saturn is in a sign that is squaring you. So it can feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Something I want you to think about is that it is conjunct Pluto, so it is saying something big needs to change and transform in regards to these 8th house matters before Pluto comes back into the 8th house. Now, to be honest with you, Gemini, risings in particular, you guys have a lot of power during this full moon. The 8th house is about purge and purification and getting to the bottom of a matter, or, you know, having more support from other people and like getting payouts or getting what you need from some kind of joint asset. And you've got Mars in your sign trining Pluto. So it's saying that you're like, bring it. I'm ready for the change. Let's make it happen. Let's just get it over with. And I think you may navigate this a little bit better than most people. I do know that change can be scary, especially if you're changing jobs or if there is a change with your partner's income, or maybe there is some kind of shift and there is more financial pressure than usual, and it's putting you in a position of being like, okay, I have to now get a second job or find a new job or, change positions. But I think you're up to the challenge with Mars and Jupiter in your sign. And I think that you're less focused on what's breaking down. You're more focused on what can I make happen. So really keep that sense of momentum going. And above all, yes, embrace change. Know that your chart ruler, Mercury, is in hard aspect to Uranus. So this is about not letting fear get the best of you. This is also about making sure you're getting adequate rest, that you're not entirely too stressed out, that you're not burning the candle at both ends. Be mindful that your subconscious can kind of come out to play, and you could be saying some things because you're reacting out of fear. Take a breath, right? Don't rush through things. Just take a breath and be more focused on solutions than the problems. Good luck. We've got a full moon in Capricorn, a blue moon for you, my Cancers and Cancer risings. You got a double dose of full moons in your 7th house of relationships. If you happen to be a late degree Cancer rising at 27, 28, 29 degrees, hold on to your shorts. This will definitely be a more intense full moon for you. So the full moon's taking place in your 7th house of partnerships, marriage, one-on-one relationships, your marketplace, your relationships with your counselors, your astrologers, your business partners, your romantic partners, spouses, all those people. You are ruled by the moon, okay? So full moons impact you a little bit more than most people. And this full moon is in the house of relationships, so it does feel like there is a critical turning point with relationships happening right now. Pluto will retrograde back into this house, and I know a lot of you guys have been traumatized by Pluto in recent years, but you're almost done. Once you get to the end of this year, it almost seems like if there has been any relationship issues, if there's been any blockages, if there's been anything you have not healed, if there is that person that still has like some kind of power over you, if there has been a block or like a karmic issue with somebody, like it's all now coming out, and it's something that is meant to be dealt with. Wherever the moon goes is where you are. So the moon in the 7th house means that you're dealing with other people, or that there's a lot of going back and forth with other people. Can be clients, can be friends, can be people at work. And it's opposing the sun in your 1st house. That conjunction to Pluto means that there is some kind of critical turning point that is going on between you and a relationship. And the conjunction to Pluto is about maybe a relationship you have to another person and a child you have together. Maybe a critical turning point in a relationship between you and another person, and whether or not there's still love there. It can also feel like there's a very karmic situation that's happening in a relationship, and that you're connecting with somebody and you're realizing like, wow, I am in love with this person, and like you're afraid of vulnerability, right? The conjunction of Pluto. This is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is in the 9th house, which basically means that relationships are hitting a critical turning point. And it can be affecting or impacting your views on relationships, your views on marriage, your views on travel, your views on also like what you believe in. There can be long distance relationship storylines that are going on with Saturn being here. There can also be major reevaluations of whether or not you can continue to stay in relationships and maintain them. And there can be some either religious or legal or spiritual kind of themes involved in that. It's like, do we have the same belief system? Is this a critical turning point in our relationship? Do we live too far away from each other? Do we both want the same thing? These things can kind of be coming up right now that you can be dealing with. Your chart ruler is conjunct Pluto, and it's a full moon. So, the one way out of this is, I would say, the sextile to Neptune, where it's about listening and being understanding and compassionate and hearing other people out, while simultaneously working with the trine to Uranus, which means, being willing to make changes and improvise and shift, and also have some kind of support that's coming from other people, whether that's friends or other potential, ways of meeting people or meeting people. I think this is also going to be about where your relationships in some capacity are going to be changing in a very big way. Obviously, this is in another cardinal sign, so this can be a little bit more impactful because it's going to be impacting all of your 4 angles, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, if there's been something that has been dragging on in a relationship that you feel like it's now hitting a critical point, likely now it's going to be coming to a head. Good luck. We have Leo and Leo rising. You'll be experiencing a full blue moon in the sign of Capricorn. Let me go back, Leo, so you can see it. And that's going to be taking place for you, my Leos, in your natal 6th house, okay? So just a reminder, this is going to be happening on the 21st, so it looks a little bit early, but it's the 21st at 29 degrees, Capricorn in your 6th house. All right, so what's going to be happening here for you guys? This is the second full moon. 6th house deals with health, work, and routines. So you're going to be getting a double dose of these themes in your 6th house. Well, this can be putting a real emphasis on your health matters, finally overcoming a habit or a health problem, a big change with your coworkers or where you're working or how you're working. This can also be showing you where you really need to kind of like wrap something up that you have been meaning to do for some time. This is also in conjunction to Pluto, which is right along your 7th house cusp, okay? So Pluto will be retrograding back into Capricorn. You'll see that here later in the fall, where likely what it's gonna wanna do is it's gonna want you to make a huge change when it comes to your schedule, your health, or how you're managing things on the home front. For me, this is like work, like home life balance, you know, with work, or, you know, are you making enough time to get your, you know, your gym time in? Are you making enough time to see your family or to kind of get stuff done at home because of Pluto's connection to the 4th house? Anyway, it does seem to me like, you know, something about your health, routine, habits, and schedule is important because it impacts other people, whether this is your relationship to your romantic partners, your spouses, your friends can be Aquarius as well. And obviously Saturn is the ruler of this, and it's retrograde in the 8th house. So it does talk about kind of getting a handle on your emotional health, your psychological health, things that you're afraid of, things that you're trying to detox and kind of heal from, and the impact that that has on your habits and your productivity and your daily routine. I think for you guys also, just having the sun in opposition to the moon in critical degrees, it can really be kind of like highlighting, like, is your body trying to tell you something? You know, is there something going on where, you know, you keep getting sick and your immune system is run down, and like, are you not getting to the core of the issues? Are you not changing the habits? And Saturn in Pisces in the 8th house can be things like healing, going to therapy, detoxing, sobriety, you know, emotional health, psychological health, sexual health. These things are all kind of connected to Saturn being in this particular placement. And Saturn does rule relationships as well, so it can be your relationships to such habits or substances. My advice is because of Saturn's connection to your 7th house and the fact that Pluto is conjunct that, it can be showing you like the negative impact of some relationships or friendships and the impact that that's actually having on your health, or where unhealthy habits or work or schedule routines can be negatively impacting something with your relationships, right? Take care of your health, Leos. That's really important at this time. And that's pretty much it. So let me know what happens. I think this is true though, because you guys are going to have a retrograde in your 1st house here pretty soon. So if there's like a health issue or something that's very critical that you need to change, likely it's going to come to your attention, and then you will spend the better part of the shadow and also the Mercury retrograde kind of healing it. Good luck. We got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys will be having a full moon, a blue moon, a second one in the sign of Capricorn in your natal 5th house. This is a fellow sister earth sign, so it may be trining your sun, moon, or rising if you're a late degree Virgo. And having 2 full blue moons. Well, I think you're one of the signs that are going to have probably a little bit easier time with this than others. The 5th house is about creativity, romance, and children. So certainly this is a great place to have a full moon because it can represent more opportunities for creativity, more opportunities for love, more opportunities for creative collaboration. Granted, when this comes through on the 21st, it's going to be a full moon at 29 degrees. So it's conjunct Pluto, which is in your 6th house of health, habits, and routine. A full moon in the fifth house can bring an I love you. It can bring a really significant date or a meeting or some kind of shift in regards to your romantic life. And it's ruled by Saturn, and Saturn's in your seventh house of marriage and committed relationships. So there is something very much about either the relationships that you have and how they are potentially developing into something more serious, having conversations of matters of the heart with a romantic partner, children or younger people somehow factoring into big decisions that you're making in your committed relationships, or a relationship that you have with a younger person like a child. It could be that as well. Now, Saturn is the ruler and it's in your seventh. So it means that if you are in a relationship and you have children, it's a lot about talking about how do we handle this situation with our kid, or how are we better preparing and taking care of our kid. It is retrograde, so that's something to kind of think about, that big relationship decisions might kind of be hinging on heartfelt conversations or decisions revolving around children. That is possible. The other thing to kind of think about is, when we have this full moon, Mercury, which is your chart ruler, is squaring Uranus. So Mercury is in your 12th house, where it will retrograde next month. And I think this can be about kind of feeling a little cagey, or finding like it can be a little bit difficult to kind of express your emotions and like communicate with other people. And you can be feeling stressed about either travel or how to find the right words to best express yourself when it comes to another person. I personally feel like this is about a big breakthrough, where some of you guys who have been waiting to kind of like really express yourself to someone or hear somebody tell you how they really feel, these things are coming, and it can like lead to positive breakthroughs in relationships in preparation for the eclipses that will be coming up in the fall, later this year in September. Pluto's going to come back into your fifth house as well. That means that there needs to be these conversations about matters of the heart and how you're really feeling. And maybe it could mean things like traveling or moving or relocating with or for partnerships, in order to really kind of have more stability in some of your long-term relationship goals, whether you're single or you're already partnered. Okay? Good luck, guys. We have Libra and Libra rising. You'll be experiencing a 29-degree full moon, a blue moon in Capricorn in your natal fourth house. This is the second one that you have had in this part of your chart. If you happen to be a late degree Libra rising, sun, moon, or rising, 27, 28, 29 degrees, this is going to feel more critical because it's going to square your sun, moon, or rising placement. All right, Libras, the full moon in the fourth house, this is about home, family, roots, the past, your living situation, and obviously the moon is at home in the fourth house. So it is much more likely to be for you, Libras, much more about your home and your living situation, your family. Somebody in your family, a roommate, one of your parents, something like that is kind of coming up with this full moon. Now, this full moon is going to be conjunct Pluto, which means something in your home life is reaching a critical kind of turning point that needs to be changed, reworked, or transformed in some way before Pluto moves into your fifth house and it's there to kind of stay permanently. I think about Pluto going through your fourth house for so many years. I think about it uprooting and like having you deal with home and family karma and issues revolving around family secrets and the past, and like trying to purge and kind of heal a situation. This can feel like a critical turning point where that's kind of rearing its head again, and there's something that you need to deal with in regards to a family member or a home situation. There is some shock or surprise that comes up with the full moon. The moon rules your 10th house of career, so something about how your career life may be impacted by a change in your residence, a crisis with a home or a family matter. And Pluto will be coming back into the fourth house where something is going to change before it goes into the fifth. For some Libras and Libra risings, it might mean that there are some major emotional or quite literally home changes that need to happen before Pluto goes into the fifth house, where maybe it means that you're like, I want to be working from home more and I need to have a designated space that I'm working from, so I'm going to transform that. For other people, it could represent that there is a change to the home happening because of having a child or the impact that children have on your home. It can be about working with the inner child as well. Saturn is the ruler of this moon. It's in the 6th house. Retrograde, which means you're reevaluating your health, your daily routines, and your habits, and that somehow is playing a role in this critical turning point with your 4th house. Libras, watch for things that need to be fixed in the home. There can be some kind of crisis where it's like suddenly something is leaking or something is broken, or there is some kind of something that happens at home and like you're needing some support or help. It can also mean that you're really feeling the pressure to change and transform something about your health and your organization of your home. It could also be something going on where, you know, you're working on your emotional health and you're realizing your emotional health has an impact on your physical habits with Saturn being in your 6th house, or that you're making some major changes to your health or your schedule or your routine to make more time to be kind of present with what's going on with your home base, okay? Venus at the time of this full moon, which is your ruler, is going to be in a trine to the North Node. So it does seem like you've got support coming in from relationships, from friends, you know, people who are there for you if you're dealing with a critical turning point. 4th house is ends of matter, okay? So something to think about is sometimes, touch wood, it can be, well, we didn't want to, but we're selling the house. Or it can be, well, you know, it's really difficult, but, you know, an older relative is potentially transitioning because of that conjunction to Pluto. And it can be that, you know, somebody is like leaving the family or the home and then somebody new is coming in. So that's something that you might see kind of correlate over the next couple of months as you're working with this Pluto transit. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You guys will be experiencing a full moon in the sign of Capricorn. It's a blue moon, so it's the second one. And my Scorpios, it is conjunct Pluto, which is your chart ruler. So this will be on the 21st, early in the morning. All right, so full moon in the 3rd house. This is about communication, vehicles, short distance trips, dealing with siblings. It can be about websites and contracts and movement and learning something. So this is about kind of completing these things. So you want to think about what's been going on since this last full moon. The fact is that the full moon is conjunct Pluto. So it's going to be very personal, I think, for my Cancers, Scorpios, and Aquariuses, and Capricorns too. But you guys, especially because of the Pluto aspects. This is about what you can change, Scorpio, okay? So I want you to really hear me on this. What can you change? The 3rd house is the power of the mind. If you can change the way you think about the world, if you can change the way that you communicate, you can change anything. So much of this is about making those changes to better embrace Pluto being in your 4th house. Pluto in the 4th house obviously can be challenging for the early degree Scorpio and Scorpio risings, because it means that you are now completely pulling up all the floorboards emotionally or quite literally in your home. There's big sweeping changes happening with your home or living situation, or with one of your parents, or where you're living or how you're living. Pluto is going to be going retrograde back into the 3rd house, which is going to be a little bit friendlier because at least it's sextile Scorpio and Capricorn, especially if you're a late degree Scorpio. And I think this full moon is basically saying something needs to be said, something needs to be discussed, something needs to be talked about. It can mean that you're having a heart-to-heart conversation with a relative. Maybe you're having a heart-to-heart conversation with a sibling or a parent. There can be some big change that's going on, or a conversation in regards to matters of the heart, because this is a full moon that's ruled by Saturn. Saturn is retrograde in your 5th house of dating, children, creativity, and self-expression. The positive is that this is a full moon where if you're like, I've been writing something and I'm ready to launch it, or if I have been working on a website and I'm finally ready to kind of hit go, great. Any creative endeavor, anything that is more metaphysical, artistic, creative, expressive, visual, Saturn and Pisces, good time to kind of launch this stuff. The challenge is that I think that this is a full moon that's going to make it difficult to have heart-to-heart conversations and express yourself with family members. Pluto in the 4th house is about some kind of crisis in regards to the family. So it looks like it's about having conversations with said family members or relatives or partners about what is needing to change or transform at the time of this particular full moon, because over the next several months, there's going to be a bigger change. Maybe there's going to be, a relocation. Maybe it's about taking care of a parent. Maybe it's going to be about moving back home. What's working in your favor at this full moon is that you do have Mars, which is your co-ruler. It'll be in Gemini and it will be trining Pluto. So while Pluto's retrograde in the 4th house going like, what am I changing about my home and my family? What am I afraid of? Mars is in the 8th house where you have support and resources coming in from other people. It might be that there is more money coming in from a spouse. It might be about an inheritance. It may be about some kind of tax matter or increased flow of income that's helping you navigate and move through some of these changes that's happening on the home front. So sweet and salty aspects for everybody, but for you, my Scorpio and Scorpio risings, I feel like this is about how you're able to communicate and express what you need, and also just finding the right words and being able to stay cool, calm, and collected in the face of changes, and knowing how to kind of prepare for that. One other thing I would say is watch for issues with cars. Vehicles can be third or fourth house, so the fact that you've got a full moon at a critical degree in the third and Pluto in the fourth, there could be something going on there. And also aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, issues with some of these people that can be popping up as well. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys will be experiencing a second full moon, a blue moon in Capricorn in your natal second house of money, finances, values, and possessions. So this is a big money moon for you. Another one, I know. This is going to be about completions, payments, purchases, things that you are wrapping up in regards to your resources. The moon rules your 8th house of money owed. So there's a lot of money coming in, paying things off, right? Or, waiting for money to come in so you can pay stuff off, and kind of like a lot of swapping funds and dealing with credit or debt usage. And also this can be about dealing with joint resources with other people, like your family's money, like your debts, loans, alimonies, inheritances, spousal support, all that stuff. I think that the full moon in the second house, conjunct Pluto, it really is highlighting and bringing to the surface any subconscious fears you have about resources and like tackling them head on. And it may mean that you get clarity or you get comfort or you get security in knowing that other people have your back, because the moon's other people's money. So it's like, okay, don't worry about this. If you can't cover it, your partner's like, I got you, or your boss is like, we're giving you better benefits, or we're going to give you a raise. Something that's going to help you feel supported, okay? Still doesn't change the fact that there can be some very critical financial things going on with this full moon. Now, this is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is actually in your 4th house of home, family, the past, and properties. So some of the expenses may be pertaining, or the purchases are pertaining to home, cost of living, things that you're putting in your home, building a home, paying for something to be fixed or replaced. Home insurance can be a big theme because the moon rules the 8th house. So this could represent, if there is a leak, or if there's a flood, or if there's water related issues, or a washing machine that breaks down or something, what it's going to cost you, and then who's going to reimburse you, or vice versa. Anyway, something to think about is that, the positive during this moon is that you do have Mars, which is in your house of relationships, where you have support from family members or a spouse or a partner or a neighbor that is trining the moon. So it's basically saying like, communicate, file the paperwork, send the email, make the phone call, call somebody and be like, I need your support. Or, how can we fix this? How can we work on this? Or how can we help each other? So it's really going to be about communication. Nothing's really going on with Jupiter. You do see a slight sextile between Venus and Jupiter. So it does seem like perhaps maybe, love or support is coming from far away, family far away, women far away, things like that. But no real kind of impact or connections specifically to Jupiter. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Pluto's going to go back into your 2nd house, which means that there is going to be a much more critical period over the next couple of months when it comes to managing your resources and your possessions and the power that money has over you psychologically. So there can be a need to kind of clean up or kind of work through any blockages in finances. Review some of the storyline that's happened since 2020 with what's been going on there with kind of your relationship to your income and funds and like what changes you've been making. But I think this is going to be about having breakthroughs in this department where you're feeling really solid and secure with your home and your living situation. I anticipate it's going to be a lot of storylines about how you're actually receiving support from other people, because Saturn is retrograde in the 4th house. Support from your home, from your family, from inheritances, from resources, from other people who are going to be kind of showing up for you. Good luck, Sag. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. This is your second full moon, your blue moon in the sign of Capricorn. Obviously 27, 28, 29 degrees of Capricorn. This is going to be more significant for you guys. It's going to be a little bit more potent. This will be, in your first house of self-appearance and identity. All right. Conjunct Pluto. So for my Capricorns and Capricorn risings, you guys are going to have like your Wizard of Oz moment where you're like, I'm melting. Like you'll feel it a little bit. But I feel like this is about melting away, peeling away, anything that you have been resistant to changing, right? This is like that breakthrough. Obviously, Pluto is in Aquarius right now. Like I said, it will make a retrograde back in the fall into your sign where you'll have a brief couple of months to kind of deal with Pluto's final tweaks and touches in your first house. I know you guys are survivors. You've been through a lot in recent years with some of the 29-degree Capricorn transits that have happened. What did not kill you made you stronger, quite literally. And so this is like your Super Bowl now. This moment is, I think, your moment where you can like dance around in your living room and play the Rocky theme because you're like, I made it. For some of you guys, it's big breakthroughs. For some of you guys, it's finally hitting that goal when it comes to your personal goals, your appearance, your body. For those of you guys who are not taking good care of yourself, the conjunction to Pluto can represent where you're like, oh my God, there is some kind of like crisis, or there is something that I need to change in a very big way. It can be a crisis of values, resources, security. It can be about self-esteem because Pluto's placement in your second house can represent these things. 2 is also, this is a full moon ruled by Saturn, which is also your chart ruler. Saturn is retrograde in the 3rd house, which means that you're reevaluating and rethinking, how do I express myself? What do I need? How do I communicate with people? How do I deal with siblings, neighbors? What am I learning? So I feel like this can be a critical turning point for you where it's like you're learning to have a breakthrough and how to speak up for yourself and how to stand up for yourself and kind of feel like you're confident and you're not shying away from like showing other people what you've got. No other real aspects because Saturn is the most important aspect. I will say that the sun in your 7th house is really shining a light in opposition to the moon. So a lot of this can be relational where it can be some kind of back and forth that you're having with a family member, with a roommate, Cancer themes, with a female sibling or, family member in communicating and kind of speaking your piece with them. It can be over financial situations or it can be over possessions because the moon's coming into conjunction with Pluto. This can also be about how you're responding to other people. So you can be feeling like other people are kind of pressing you a little too much. And obviously the moon in your 1st house can make you like very emotional. But definitely major completions, major breakthroughs, major opportunities. Maybe you find that you've come so far, but there's a few other things that you thought that you had kind of dealt with that's now kind of coming up that you need to work through within yourself at the time of this particular full moon. Pay attention to your body, right? Pay attention to also how you're thinking, how you're breathing, how you're moving around because Saturn is in that part of your chart. Good luck. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You'll be experiencing a second full moon, a blue moon in the sign of Capricorn in your natal 12th house. All right, so for you guys, this is a little bit more mysterious. It's about solitude, spirituality, and the subconscious. Look back at what happened with this most recent full moon in the 12th house. It could have had you feeling like you were up at night, feeling kind of squirrely, feeling a little bit more private, winding something down, dealing with things kind of behind the scenes. It could have been about work behind the scenes. It could have been about past life stuff. It could have been about, things you're trying to kind of work through where maybe you have felt kind of like blocked. But the 12th house is private, okay? So this is where you're going to be probably needing a little bit more rest and recuperation or healing because that's what the 12th house is about. It's very close to Pluto in your 1st house. So similar to Capricorn, there is a huge emphasis on your body with this full moon, big changes with your body. Pluto retrograde means that you're kind of now integrating and really thinking about what you want to change and what is going to be shifting. And the moon rules your health, okay? So you want to really be paying attention to your health during this full moon because Pluto is still somehow in your 1st house in some capacity if you're an Aquarius rising, and it's going to go back into the 12th house where it's going to be about, once again, healing, resting, recuperating, taking time away from the spotlight, from work, from responsibility. For some of you guys, this can be a turning point where you're like, okay, I'm at my wit's end. Like I really do need a break, or I need a vacation, or I need to take like a mental health day. And the ruler of this full moon is Saturn, which is also your co-ruler. Saturn will be retrograde in your second house of money, which means you're reevaluating how much money do I have? How am I spending it? What do I need? You know, what am I doing with my resources? And somehow that can have you during this full moon feeling a little bit more squirrely or unsettled when it comes to the effects of the full moon. I'm going to keep telling you guys this over and over. Don't fight what you cannot change. Okay? Do not fight what you cannot change. And I don't know if this is an inevitable change with your lifestyle, with your health, with your body, if it's an inevitable change when it comes to your work and your routine. Do not get so overly focused on, well, the financial side of things and the money side of things, and like push yourself to an extreme to where your body is actually like breaking down, because Pluto in the first house can do that. So through some kind of crisis or changes with your body, it's trying to force you to kind of like heal and rest and recuperate. So this is a time that you really want to like maybe spend being in a sauna, being outside, going for a hike, doing something in nature, you know, meditating, so you can really kind of move through some of the big changes that are happening with this full moon. The positive is that we will see the moon is going to trine Uranus, which is your co-ruler, at the time of the full moon. So it does mean that, you know, what you're leaning into is, okay, I am willing to make these emotional shifts, or I am willing to kind of like let go of, you know, this instability or this emotional turbulence or this issue with my home or with my family situation. Like I just have to let it go. And so actually the easiest thing for you to do with this full moon is just to be hands off and be like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's not worth getting myself all worked up over it. It's not worth causing all of this instability. Equally, you've got Mars in your fifth house of creativity, children, self-expression, fun, playtime, romance. It's trining Pluto, which means you're feeling empowered to say, I want more fun. I want more creative time. I want more love. I want more self-expression. I want to have opportunity to spend time with kids, or to be dating, or to be doing hobbies. And that seems to be something that is going to lift your spirits. That seems to be something that's going to help you kind of move through the change. So maybe it means that you're playing a word game, you know, Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. Maybe it means that, you know, you're writing, or, you know, you're using some crossword puzzles, or maybe you're playing some chess with your kids, something to kind of get your mind off of something while you're resting and recuperating. You need something that's going to kind of keep you stimulated and feeling kind of entertained. And you might be like, I have work to do. Work can wait. Focus more on what's going on with kind of the resting and recuperation, and then you'll actually see some of the pressure kind of dissipate. Good luck. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys will be experiencing a full moon in Capricorn. This is the second full moon, a blue moon in your 11th house. This is about friendships. This is about groups, goals, and this also is about the income that you bring from work, because it's second house to your 10th. So it can be financial here as well. Well, a full moon in the 11th house is definitely social, right? There's more opportunities to go out, parties, see friends, connect with others, join new groups, network, all of that stuff. And it's also in some harmonious aspects to Neptune in your sign. So it's very much about being in tune with your goals and the right people and who you need to connect with, and kind of really focusing on building the life that you desire. But this is a full moon that's a blue moon. It's at 29 degrees, and it's going to be conjunct Pluto. So it does kind of have this feeling of now or never, getting very serious and really kind of pushing yourself in the direction that you need to go in when it comes to making your dreams a reality. The conjunction of Pluto is in your 12th house. It does represent your 9th house. So there can be a critical turning point in your goals and how it pertains to education, your higher mind, or even travel. We are also going to see that this is a full moon that is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is in your first house of self, where it's retrograde, and you're reevaluating, who am I, where am I going, what are my boundaries, how am I feeling? So it may feel as if this is like a critical point to kind of figure out some of these things, and you might find that, you know, you're trying to figure out, well, who you can align with, or what people you can associate with, or what friends you can make, or networks you can be in in order to kind of see some of these things come full circle. Now, the other thing to think about is that it is conjunct Pluto, and Pluto will be retrograding back into your 11th house pretty soon. And this is going to really represent, I think, more of like a continuation of like the changes and like the clearing out of some of your friend groups. You may feel like you're wanting to only align yourself with people who are movers and shakers. There can definitely be some endings or completions to relationships that you're feeling like you're outgrowing in some capacity. That may already be happening because Pluto has been there, and also because Saturn and Neptune, you know, being so close together, might have you saying, well, there's certain people that I'd rather just not associate with, or I want to kind of keep to myself. What's working in your favor, I think, at the time of this particular full moon is definitely going to be the sextile that you're having to Neptune. And it's about your vision and really aligning with your vision and knowing what feels good and like what kind of people you want to spend time around, and like where that's going to kind of help you feel the most complete, but also the most productive. Something to think about is that we do have, you know, Jupiter and Mars in your 4th house now, and these trines that are happening to your 12th house. And so, you know, it does feel like there are things that are coming to a completion or coming to an end. This can be in regards to your goals. This can be in regards to your home or your family. Obviously, there are definitely some things changing, revolving around where you may be living right now, and that might also impact the kind of people who you're kind of surrounding yourself with, and big changes in the friendship department. Pluto will be going back into your 11th house soon, so it's going to be another couple of months of really focusing on getting serious about your long-term goals. And it will be in harmonious aspect to Neptune in your sign, so it's going to be very beneficial for you for kind of mixing and mingling with the right people and knowing exactly where you need to be and where, and listening to your intuition and really kind of like letting that be your guide as you go through this. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for all of you guys. I know this is going to be such an incredible full moon. I myself cannot really comprehend exactly how this is going to play out, even for myself in my own life and also out in the world. So I'd love to hear from you guys. You know, do you have a natal moon conjunct Pluto? Do you have a moon at 29 degrees? Let us know how that's impacted you. It's always helpful to hear from you guys in the comment section. As always, I appreciate your likes, your comments, your shares, and your subscriptions. You guys interacting with my channel, even if it's just a thumbs up or a comment, you help my channel algorithm grow, and it's gonna help get my videos out into YouTube and get more subscribers. So if you like this content, please do share or give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more about me and my work, check out my website in the links below at www.beyondtheveiledtarot.com. You can see my courses, all of my workshops, my calendars, and also my personal sessions if you want to book a reading with me. I would love to talk to you guys about Pluto's retrograde in Capricorn and help you figure out an action plan for navigating the next 5 or 6 months to really make the most of this transit, to wrap up these old karmic strings. So if you need help, send me an email. I'd love to work with you. That's all from me. I will be back here on Thursday. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week, and you take care. Enjoy this full moon.